We had all of a sudden just witnessed something that none of us had ever seen, that none of us thought existed. Panic, just terror, fear. We just saw something that's not supposed to exist. I'm thinking, oh my God, this thing is going to kill us. It's going to maul us. How do we get out of here? Maybe we should start screaming for help.
You're listening to the Cryptid Creatures Show with Brian and Todd. If you're enjoying the show or would like to submit an encounter, visit our website at www.cryptidcreatures.net, or you can email us at info@cryptidcreatures.co. Now back to the show. Welcome back to the Cryptid Creatures Show. This is Brian. Right over there with me, as always, and my co-host Todd. What's up, buddy?
Brian, my friend, we have a very amazing and scary encounter coming on today.
Yeah.
The reason I say that is because it is another Dogman encounter, and we know how those go.
Favorites.
We know how these go. This one's very interesting because of how it happened and what happened. So we're going to bring Matt on. Matt's coming on to talk about his terrifying encounter him and his friends had when they were younger. So.
Yeah, man. We're ready. Let's get him.
Hey, guys.
There he is.
Hey, Matt. How you doing?
I'm okay. How about yourself?
Doing good.
Doing good.
Good.
Thanks for being here tonight, Matt. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good having you. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate it as well. I was telling Todd the other day that, I came across your show on my Google speaker one day. I was cooking and I just, I put on a cryptid podcast and you guys popped up, and ever since, I've been listening. You guys do a heck of a good job.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Cool. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
You had sent us an email, and Brian and I read this, and we were astounded and amazed about what happened to you. This happened in, you said, Youngstown, Ohio, right?
Correct.
And you were a teenager when this happened?
Yeah, I was 13, 14 years old. It was the summer after I finished my 8th grade year in junior high, and getting ready to, start those grand years of high school. And, we, of course, you hit the ground running as soon as you get out of school for summer vacation. And, back in that time, we didn't have cell phones and all of the electronics and stuff that all these kids have today. So we played outside. We did everything outside. And, we were, my group of friends, we were very big on, going places a good distance from where we lived. And, it was I don't know if you know anything about Youngstown, Ohio, but especially Youngstown in the late 80s, early 90s was a rough place. And, we were a group of tough kids, and, we weren't afraid of going places, and, we liked to frequent specifically, that old steel mills, which, Youngstown was known for way back when, as it was a big steel industry town. And it is just a massive property down there. You can see it if you go online and Google it and everything. You can see how big it is. There is a steel mill down there now, but, the majority of it is just old, dilapidated, buildings and everything, and it was no different, in the early 90s. And we made that place somewhere that we frequented. And my one buddy, who's no longer with us, actually lived directly across the street from an opening that we always utilized to get down there from there. And that's, what brought us down into that area and to this story.
All right. Well, I guess we'll just roll right into it if you're
You're ready?
Yeah.
All right. Start from the beginning. Lay it on us.
Okay. Well, early 90s, as I said, we had just gotten out of junior high and ready to start our freshman years in high school, the next school season. And, Youngstown, Ohio is not, especially dotted with a ton of forests and everything. This is the city, and we do have a big park called Mill Creek Park, and as with anything else, you could Google and see it's a pretty big. I don't know if it's considered a state park or a whatever, but it's just a big park, and that's like one of the main areas, at least for the city, that if you want to get somewhere into nature and that you can get into it. So everything else is very city, and we would go down to the steel mills, which Youngstown, Ohio, back in the day, was one of the big steel making towns. It's what built the town, and also what hurt it, even to this day, financially, when the steel mill shut down and everything like that. But this area, a good friend of mine who's no longer with us, he lived directly across the street from the steel mills, and what we would like to do is we would go over his house and meet. We'd go down and we would just go around this massive property down there of old dilapidated buildings and just investigate and, just do what young boys do and get into trouble, break windows and whatever else. And very rarely did we ever see a human being down there. If you would see a person, we would avoid them, because that would mean it was some form of security or somebody that would get us into trouble. Police didn't really frequent the area. It's a working railroad went right through the middle of the steel mills, and it's utilized to this day. There is a steel mill down there right now, and they utilize the railroad to get supplies in and out. And when the train would come through, they would always have security on there. So if they would see something not right, like a group of young men in the steel mill, or something going on that shouldn't be, either security would deal with it, or what would happen the majority of the time is they would contact the police department and they would go down there and deal with the situation. What we did frequently run into down there, aside from the occasional homeless person, would be groups of wild dogs. And, anybody that knows, like in big cities, they usually have, packs of dogs that kind of band together and depend on each other to do whatever. They are not, fluffy and nice and gentle. They are mean and dangerous, and we would absolutely avoid these packs of dogs if we ever ran into them. We also, this being that time of the decade back then, it was during the time of, a lot of Bloods and Crip things going on with the gangs. And, Youngstown, unfortunately, during that time was known for things that we really, did not want to be known for. It was considered Murder Town, USA at that point. The murders per capita was like number one in the country. It was a very, very dangerous time. in Youngstown at that time. And so we, even though we were so young, we would usually, at the very least, one of us would usually have a weapon on us, meaning a gun. More than anything, we would take guns down there because we knew those wild dogs were down there, and we never, ever went down there with any, idea of if we see these dogs, we're going to shoot them. Did not just shoot any animal. Right? We never ended up shooting anything. But if the need came and these things attacked us, of course we're going to protect ourselves. This day that we went down there, there were 4 of us, and 3 of us had guns. One had this old 25 caliber little automatic that actually made its way through the hands of all of us. Another buddy of mine had an older 22 handgun, and then I actually would take, and I'm lucky my dad never found out. He wasn't big on guns or anything, but again, being the time of the era, he had gotten through a friend of his a 38 special handgun that he kept in an old cowboy boot in his closet. And whenever we knew we were going down to the steel mill, I would go in there and I'd sneak and I'd take this gun, and we go down there, and at least we knew we had some protection. So it was, summertime. It was in June, I believe. Hot, we get hot summers in Youngstown, very high humidity, sometimes 100% humidity, and into the 90s. And this was no different. It was a really hot day. And we had, if you, and I should have showed you guys, I should have sent you a picture. They have aerial views of the steel mill down there. And there's this one building that the railroad track actually literally drives right past the opening of it. We picked this one building as kind of our, quote unquote home base. And it didn't have any stairs to get into it, which we liked. You had to kind of hop up and roll into the opening of it to get into it, and we liked it because of that dog situation. It was more secure. It was harder to get into, and they had these. I'm going to look it up someday to try and find out what they were, but they had these metal. I don't know. Looking back, it looks like an old shield, kind of a long U-shaped kind of metal thing that I don't know what they were for, but they had hundreds of these things stored in this building. So what we did, because the opening of this building on all 4 sides was just massive, so we took these and we started making lines with them, and we basically created walls with them as high as we could stack them. And we, they were heavy and secure, and we actually made 4 walls. And what we would do is we would, with the ton of things to burn down there, we would have big fires when the sun went down, and we do it right on the concrete floor on the first floor. And the ceiling was so high, it had, I believe, either 3 or 4 levels. And I mean, there was no danger of the flames touching the ceiling at all. So we would have big fires. And the day that we went there, we actually had built one up, and night came, and we were in the inside and just hanging out, doing what we do. And I remember we heard a pack of the dogs, and we could hear them coming, and they were making a lot of noise. And so what we did is we walked outside on the opening of this building, and we wanted to watch what they were doing. And they ran right by us, didn't give us any attention or anything. And what they had dotted all over by the railroad tracks were piles of coke. And if anybody understands steel mills and anything, it's like an ingredient that steel mills use to make steel. It's just some kind of, I don't even know what it's made of. It's just some type of material. Looks like dirt if you're not really paying attention. And they had huge piles of these things. And we actually had a huge one right out front of the building that we were in. So these wild dogs come running by the building, and they run over and down the other side, to which within a couple seconds, we immediately start hearing them attacking something. Fight is going on. We thought it was actually just the dogs themselves were fighting with each other. And it goes on, I would say, for, 3 to 5 seconds. And then we hear very, very easily another louder, deeper dog noise, growling, but in an attack kind of sound. That this thing, it was obvious whatever they ran over the hill on, it was this. And they were attacking this thing, and it was attacking back. That went on, I don't know, I would say maybe 6-7 seconds, and then we start hearing yelping. And loud yelping and pain, and it is the pack of dogs. And what starts happening is intermittently, like a second here, a second there, we start seeing dogs in the air coming over up this huge pile and hitting the ground, and some of them staying down for a second, getting up, limping, some of them, and then other one comes over. I remember 3 specifically this happened to, and we're all looking at each other like, whoa, what the heck's going on here? Then the majority of them, I think there was 5 or 6 of these wild dogs, they all start running back the way they came. And I mean, hauling ass. And some of them having trouble running, they're limping, and obviously some of them injured. And they are gone. And we're watching them go away, and we're like, what the heck was that? And then I remember hearing my one buddy say, guys, what is that? And we all simultaneously look at the hill, and what is crawled up on the top of this pile is a massive animal. It looks like a wolf German Shepherd kind of mix. And it is sitting at the top of this hill, and it's watching the dogs run away. It is not looking at us. I don't know if it knew we were there at that point. I don't think it did know that we were there. And what it did next was, it lifts its leg and it starts urinating. But we didn't laugh, because when it started urinating, it let out a stream that was literally looked like somebody turned on a garden hose and started, spraying. And that personally for me scared me, because the force at which this dog was just, some people might think this sounds funny, but it wasn't. The force at which this dog was urinating was disturbing. It was like, there were pieces of this material flying up in the air. And, looking back, watching these dogs run away and it's urinating. I mean, I personally just think it was basically saying, this is my territory. I just took care of business. Don't come back here. I'm marking my territory. And my one friend started backing up. He said he was starting to go back inside, but he was keeping his eye on this animal, and he tripped up. And I remember he reached forward and he grabbed the shoulder of another one of my friends, and they kind of fell back and they hit one of these metal things that we had created this wall with. And it made a pretty good noise, and it snapped its head to right at us. And immediately we saw and got scared. We saw its eyes, and looking back, the reason we were able to see, because it was night, the reason we were able to see its eyes is, looking back, is we had that fire going inside. Even though we had these walls built up and everything, there was still light coming out, and it was, going off of its eyes, and they looked like they had a power source, though. They were glowing, and they were like a yellowish, like amber kind of color. I've never to this day seen another animal that had a color in its eyes like this. And it was staring at us, and you could see, they were big eyes, and you could see where its eyes were looking. You saw its eyeballs moving, and what it did next was so alien and just horrifying that, to this day, and right now, whenever I tell this story, I always have the same reaction to this day. Right now, the hairs on the back of my neck are standing up. I have the goose chicken skin right now. I mean, this was something out of a nightmare, what this animal did. And let me go back real quick to what we're seeing on all fours. Is this dog looks like the size. We've never seen a dog this size. We've never seen anything a dog look like this. I mean, it looking back on it, I mean, at least the size of a bear. I've seen bear before. Besides in a zoo, I've actually been into woods before, and I've seen black bear before. I've never seen a grizzly, and I'm glad I haven't. But I've seen black bear, and I've seen some pretty big ones. And this thing was every bit as big as the biggest I've ever seen. In fact, quite honestly, I'm pretty sure that it was bigger than any black bear that I've ever seen, even on TV. This thing ends up, I mean, oh my God, I mean, I have the goosebumps.
That's right. Take your time.
Stands up on two legs, not like a bear does, where, when a bear stands up, they have, you can tell it's not used to doing it. It does it to get a better view of its surroundings or make itself bigger against other predators or something like that. This thing stood up on two legs, like it's very comfortable doing it, and that it's used to doing it. And it stood up, and it had, the dog legs and the way that dogs' legs are shaped. And something that really stood out to me and to all of us when we talked about it later was the size of the muscles in the legs. I mean, as every bit as big as any man's quads. And I mean, I liken looking back at how big and defined these muscles in its legs were to a bodybuilder. And I hadn't really noticed much other than the head and anything, but I do remember the neck, very thick. And whenever this thing even just barely moved, and when it stood up, you saw muscles in it, rippling. You saw them moving to get the creature to stand, stable and upright. At that point, we all had turned around and were fighting to push each other to get inside of this building as fast as we could, because within a heartbeat of this thing standing up, it was a paradigm had shifted. I mean, we had all of a sudden just witnessed something that none of us had ever seen, that none of us thought existed. And, the two of my friends are no longer here with us, God rest their soul. But, even to this day, my other two buddies and I, whenever we talk, we discuss this. There's not a time that we don't, if we see each other or we speak, that something, even a comment, doesn't come across one of our lips. And, we all said the same thing as, obviously, first and foremost, panic, just terror, fear. But in our heads, you're thinking, we just saw a werewolf, basically. Things that we've seen on TV, in movies, something that's not supposed to exist. We just witnessed stand up and look at us. And it was just beyond massive. So we're horrified. We're running into this building. And what we immediately did was, there were obviously stairs to get up in this building to the other floors. But what was different about this was, each staircase going up to each different floor were severely damaged and dilapidated. So there were missing concrete stairs every so often. Going up from the first floor to the second floor, I remember there were three that were missing. So you had to, give a nice little hop in between to get over them and to go up. And looking back, man, it was dangerous. We're lucky none of these gave out on us whenever we went up and down these. And we did them all the time, being young men, doing what you're doing. You don't think about, what if these give out and we fall or anything. They didn't, thankfully. So we hop these three that are gone and we run up to the second floor, and then we end up running up to the third floor, and the second amount of stairs had like one missing here, a couple missing there, but they were better than the first one. And we got up to the third floor, and there were, you could look into the center of this building, and there was like, a concrete half wall that would go around the entire floor, and you'd be able at any side, northwest, south, or east, look down into this center of the building, and you'd have a half wall there. Looking back, when we got up there, we should have ducked down and hid, but all we did was go up to that third floor, and we were looking straight down, and hoping, praying that this thing had left, that it wasn't, gonna come in there or anything like that. And I think it was somewhere between 30 seconds to a minute, but it felt like forever. We're standing there. My one buddy's actually crying. We're all breathing extremely heavy, horrified, and thinking to ourselves, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? I'm thinking, oh my God, this thing is going to kill us. It's going to maul us. How do we get out of here? Maybe we should start screaming for help. Then we hear a noise, and you could hear, like, it sounded like, dog's nails scraping on concrete. And, I personally inside, I felt like a sinking feeling because I knew what that noise was. It was climbing up, and it climbed up. And we had, like I said, we had a giant fire burning in the middle of this building. And what I always remember, and again, the hairs are standing up, is this thing starting to come in, and the fire, the way that the light was shining, it hit it perfectly when it entered that first floor. And when the light hit it, on the wall behind it was its shadow. And it was, of course, multiplied in size by how big this thing was. And just complete horror because, that looks just menacing as it is, just the shadow of this thing. And you could see when it came into the light, very, very detailed now. We got a great look at this thing. We were 10, 20 yards at the most from this thing, looking down. So at least we had a separation of height between us. But man, it was like we were in a zoo and we were getting a great view of this thing. And it had, I don't know if it was just extremely dark brown, but it looked black hair. I remember seeing a tail. I don't remember how big it was or how thick it was. What I do remember again was as it walked, seeing just muscles rippling. What I liken it to is the Gimlin Bigfoot video when, they've improved the video and you're able to see now things that they were never able to see before. And I don't know your guys' opinion on that one. I think that is one of the few, and I think that there's other videos out there that are real videos, but I think that one is for sure 100% the real thing. Which is incredible, to think about that. And but you can see muscles moving on her. You can see the breasts and even see that bump that she has in her thigh, maybe a torn muscle or something like that. So I liken it to that. You can see under the fur, which was not long. It was somewhat shorter, but you could see muscles moving. You could see the head. Like I said before, combination, in my opinion, and our opinions when we talked about it later, combination of a German Shepherd and a wolf. The best way I can describe it. Longer snout. Definitely longer than a bear. Pointy ears. And what I remember about the ears was when it came into the building, its ears were moving. So it was, it came in and one this way and one another, and it's using them to look around and hear. And, the thing that bugs me the most to this day, and we all agree on this, the thing that scared me and them as well the most was you could see the teeth of this thing, but what was the most noticeable and what stood out to us the most was it was drooling and salivating, but it wasn't just a little line of something. It was just almost like it took a drink and it was just pouring out of its mouth. So what that says to me now is it's in its mind, I'm about to get a meal, or I'm about to attack something, and that has created this thing to start that salivation process, and for whatever reason it was pouring out of its mouth. And that to this day horrifies me. And it looked menacing, and it was horrifying and scary, and we started to get feelings of like, I can feel like my face getting warm right now thinking about it. Like a hopeless, something really bad is about to happen here. And all of a sudden, none of us had made a noise. It just snapped to, looked straight up at us. It knew we were there. I don't know if it all of a sudden caught our scent or what, but it looked right up, and it looked right at us, and it snarled and it growled. And, going back to when we were outside, I actually forgot to mention this. When it first had noticed us on the hill and my buddy had made the noise, and it looked at us, it growled at us. And it wasn't just a little roar. It was a very deep, loud growl. It didn't roar or anything, but it was so loud and so deep that I felt it in my chest. And I don't remember who said it, if it was me or somebody else. But we had talked about, after we had talked about it, we had mentioned how we felt that we actually felt the growl in our chest. And when we went inside right after that, two of my buddies had said that they were lightheaded, that they were sick. They started feeling sick. My one buddy had said, he's like, I feel like I'm going to pass out. So, they talk about that. I've heard over the years about the infrasound or something like that Bigfoot or something do sometimes, and people have said that they have started to feel like they're losing consciousness, or it affects them in some way, and that they lose control and they're just like standing there like a deer in the headlights. That's what he basically had described. It did not happen to me, other than me feeling it in my chest. But two of us said basically the same thing happened to them. So we were up on that third floor, and it sees us, and immediately we start looking around about what we're going to do. And, we're thinking we have to get out of here. But what I knew, and of course they knew, we didn't say it out loud, was that was the only way out of the building, going back down right towards this thing, because outside, which we could get out to, was a fire escape. But what had happened over the years, being, time and it being dilapidated and everything like that, was the bottom portion of the fire escape had rusted and fallen away. It was down on the ground, all mangled and destroyed. You could easily go up, and there was a fourth floor, and then there was also an outside area you could, at which we had gone to. You could go out and go up to the roof and go up there, but that was our only avenue. So we start, panicking, because now what this thing has done is it started up the first flight of stairs, easily hops over the first three stairs, that missing group of stairs, and starts making its way towards the second group. And my one friend started screaming, and we're panicking. I was horrified. I was frozen in place. I didn't know what to do. And here we are, three guys. We all have weapons. None of us thought anything to use any of these weapons. They never came out at that time. And what happened next was either divine intervention or just luck beyond luck. And we started hearing a train coming our way on that track that goes right past this building. Dude, my face is so hot right now thinking about this. I feel like I'm almost back there. It's the same thing that happens to me every time I tell this story. I have not shared this story with many people other than very close friends and family. So you guys are definitely in a very small group. Obviously, the group is going to get a lot bigger after this. But, this train comes, and it's what they do. We'd always hear, the whistle on it. I don't know if it was they saw the fire in the building and that's why they pulled on it. But as soon as it came by the building, they hit their whistle, and loud as hell. I tend to think they did notice the fire because it was so bright, and they were in whatever way that they're supposed to let people know that something's going on. They were signaling for that, and we were all about it. And when he hit that siren, that whistle on that train, its head snapped to the opening of the building to the side of where it was going by, and I believe it spooked it, because what it did is it didn't look at us again, turned around, ran down and out the way it came. And you want to talk about relief. You want to talk about just, we were all shaking. I felt like my legs were going to give out from me because I was so horrified. I felt like I couldn't barely stand on my own. And it was gone. And, the train came and went. And then, of course, what starts creeping in immediately is it going to come back in? And it never did. God, thank you. But we stood there, and we were up on that third floor, I'd say, for at least a good 15, 20 minutes, and then we made our way down to the second floor in another 15, 20 minutes, and then we made our way down to the first floor. And then we remembered our guns, and we all took them out, and we all made sure they were chambered, and I had a revolver, so it was ready to roll. Turned the safeties off, and we stayed down there on that first floor, I believe, at least a good 45 minutes to an hour. And we were horrified to go outside. We thought the second we were going to go outside, is it going to be waiting for us? Is it going to be standing right there? What do we do? We just still had that extreme sense of panic in us. And we finally decided we can't stay down here anymore. We've got to try and get out of here. And all of us, we had flashlights, but, again, this wasn't now with these nice LED bright flashlights that we have these days. These were, the old, I don't know if you guys remember the store Farmore they used to have back in the day, Farmore Special, and you just see batteries. But we had 4 flashlights, and all of them turned on together, at least brightened up the way in front of us. And we had the guns out, we were pointing them, and we went out, and we didn't didn't see anything. Made our way down. And what was scary too is when you climbed down off of the opening of this building, there was a large space behind it that went to the bottom portion of this building. And we were, scared that maybe this thing was under there, and it could have, if it was there, we would have been right in its jaws. It would have got us easily. It could have got us easily anyway. It had no problem making its way up to the point where it got to. So we got down and we made our way as fast as we could back to my buddy's house. The whole time thinking it's gonna pop out, it's gonna start chasing us. We kept looking behind us, and what was also really scary about going back is to get down to this area. They had these large, giant piles of other material. I think it was just old, just buildings that were broken up and stuff, but you had to kind of, walk your way down these. So to get back up out, up on pavement again, you had to almost, use all fours to get up there. So as we're climbing back up these certain areas to get back up to the pavement, we're horrified that, every noise we heard, oh my God, we'd all look and think it was this thing coming, and never did. We made it back to my buddy's house, and I remember getting there, and he had a garden hose out front, and I remember turning it on, and I was drinking water. I just kept drinking and drinking and drinking. And I was just, I don't know why, just so thirsty. And I remember doing that for a long period of time. I got real sick from it. I don't know if it was just I was dehydrated from fear or what. I don't know why that stands out to me. I remember doing that. But nobody was at my buddy's house. His dad owned a towing company, and he worked late hours, so he wasn't there. But that was our night of horror down in the steel mills of Youngstown, Ohio.
That's incredible. I don't know what else to say. Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wild. I got goosebumps a couple times there.
I did too. I had the hair standing up on my arms and my back, my neck too when you were talking. That's something out of a horror movie.
Yeah, it is.
That's literally, you lived something out of a horror movie.
I believe that. I really, looking back on the experience, and that's what my one buddy always says to this day. He's like, "Dude, man, we were in a werewolf movie, man. They could make a movie from what we had happen to us." And I agree. I mean, it was something out of a nightmare. It was definitely something out of a movie because, you had your scenes of extreme stress and then, at the end of it, the savior situation. And I'm telling you right now, I believe this from my heart of hearts. I'm a Catholic boy, not the greatest Catholic in the world. I don't go to church too often. I should go more often. But, I believe in God. I truly, and we all said the same thing, we all believe there was divine intervention there because this thing had us. It had us. I truly believed I was going to die. I thought this thing was going to kill us. Again, we didn't think anything about the guns, and I'm looking back at the size of this thing. For sure, the 25 and the 22 would have bounced off this thing. It would have pissed it off. I don't know if a 38 would have hurt it. I tend to think that how big this thing was and the the massive muscles and whatnot, I don't think the 38 would have done anything much other than piss it off as well. So I think maybe in a nutshell, it was good that we did not shoot at this thing, because that might have ended our lives prematurely. I really think that somebody was looking out for us. And I was screwed up for many years after that. Looking back now at what I know about today and everything, I truly, and we all had PTSD. You didn't know anything about PTSD back then. Knowing about PTSD now, well, we had it, and I've had a couple of nightmares even recently. About 6-7 months ago, I had a dream about a dog man, and I truly believe that I have some deep scars from that night, and there's going to be people out there, no matter what, that are skeptics, and they. And everyone's allowed to have their own opinion. I don't fault anyone for their beliefs or whatnot, but I know what we saw. And that's the best part of the situation and about what happened was it wasn't one person saying this. This was four of us said the exact same thing. We talked about it in depth. I mean, my God, that summer, that's all we talked about, obviously. We never went back down there that summer. It was years before we ever even went anywhere near that place. We all saw the same thing. We know what we saw. We did not tell many people. We knew. We told a bunch of people they're going to laugh at us and they're going to tell us we're crazy or we're liars or whatnot. Who we did tell was our family. Each of us told our families. My mom and dad did not believe we saw what we said we saw, because when I told it, they're like, oh, come on, man, you're crazy. That's not what you saw. When I described how it stood up and everything, my dad said, Matt, it was a black bear. There's a black bear made its way in the Mill Creek Park, and it made its way down it's called the Mahoning River, goes through, like Mill Creek into bigger tributaries or whatever. And it made its way following the Mahoning River into the steel mills and whatnot. That's what you saw. Not what I saw. And when my buddies, because we would all always end up at each other's house sometime throughout the week. So we would always end up at each one of our houses, sometimes the same night. And when we all were at my house together, my parents, of course, grilled into the other guys, and they said, so what's the deal here with this thing Matt tells us you guys saw a werewolf and all this and that? And they all straight faced, and my one buddy with tears in his eyes, said, yes, that's what we saw. This is what we saw. And, they would do the old police roll on us of trying to see if any one of our story deviated from each other, and none of them did. They were all exactly the same. Years later, fast forwarding, my mom and dad are no longer here, unfortunately. I lost my dad about 8 years ago to pancreatic cancer, and my mom about 6 years ago to complications from lupus. But my dad, he was my best friend, and he knew something happened. He believed something happened. He just had trouble believing that. Well, I remember the last year of his life, we were talking about things, and I brought that back up. And I said, Dad, I've been really trying for years to tell you, what happened here really happened. And I told him, I'm a grown man now, I'm not a kid. And I want you to know that, I need you to understand that this thing happened and that I really saw this thing. And, over the years, obviously, since then, you have, things with Bigfoot have become more commonplace in media and on the news and everything. And my dad actually started getting very interested in cryptids and things like that. What got him into the cryptid thing obviously was me and what happened with it, but he was always interested in aliens and UFOs and our beliefs that, that there are other life forms out there, that the universe is just too big and it's mathematically impossible that we're the only things out here on this little planet. So he started changing his opinion about things, and when we had this one discussion one day, and I told him, I need you to believe me when I tell you that this really happened. And he finally, said, son, I believe. He said, I'm sorry, all those years ago that I didn't. He said, that really scares me that you were in that situation. He says, I don't know what your mother and I would have done if we would have lost you. He said, but, if you say that that's what happened, he says, I believe you. And he said, that scares the hell out of me.
Matt, we want to thank you for coming on and telling your story. It's amazing, incredible, scary.
Yeah, that was great.
Thanks.
I wish these things weren't real. My wife always says, you believe that? And I'm like, I wish I didn't believe that Dogman was real, but I know that they are. And you and plenty of other people have told us about these things, and it's terrifying.
It is.
But I'm glad you got through it and you're able to talk about it and come on and tell us about today.
Well, thank you for having me on and allowing me to do it. It was cathartic.
Good. Well, we appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, you take care, and again, be safe out there. If you're ever out there looking around and see something else, let us know.
Yeah, let us know for sure.
Thank you, guys.
All right, bud. You take care.
Thanks, Matt.
You too. Bye-bye.
Man, I don't even know what to think about that. That is...
Oh, I don't know. That was wild.
That's out of a movie, When he's talking about the thing walking in and he could see the shadow from the fire on the wall, this thing. I mean, my God.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't imagine.
If there's one thing I've learned on this since we've been doing the show is they are getting closer and closer to rural areas. I mean, they're getting closer and closer to city populated areas.
I know, and that really freaks me out a lot.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, it's one thing to go way out in the middle of nowhere and see something, but my gosh, right up your back door, basically.
That close to home? Mm-mm. Nope, thank you.
Oh, man. I hope sooner or later we can figure out this mystery and get some enlightenment on this one way or the other.
That's why we're doing what we're doing.
We'll keep on doing it until we figure it out.
That's right.
All right, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with me again. Always fun.
Always fun. Always learning.
All right. We'll get out of here.
Yep. See ya.